Part of our scriptures for today. Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." And this is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So I was reading through the Gospel of Matthew, and I saw those words from Matthew chapter 5, "Let your light shine." And then I turned the page in my Bible to Matthew chapter 6, and Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, verses 2 through 4, "So whenever you give alms, do not sound your trumpet before you. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you." And so right away, there was this contradiction set up in my mind. I said, "Jesus, which one is it? Am I to be a light or a trumpet?" "Do not sound the trumpet before you," says Jesus. And Jesus says, "You know what, Norm? It's both. Read it carefully." That's what we got to do with the Bible. We have to read carefully, look for what Jesus is really saying to us. And so I read again the two scriptures over and over and over, and I began to see the nuances of difference between the two teachings. Let your light shine. Do not sound a trumpet before you. Be visible, but don't demand people pay attention to you. Let your light shine quietly. Letting your light shine is a passive activity, right? We just don't cover it up. Sounding a trumpet is an active attempt to draw attention to yourself, and both teachings, if you read them carefully, are all about God. Let your light shine so people can see that the people of faith are doing good things for God, and so that God's name is being glorified. Don't sound your trumpet, because if you're doing something praiseworthy, God will give you all the attention that you deserve in the days to come, in his eternal home. And I will notice that the word alms actually makes a difference in the readings. Whenever you give alms, it says, don't sound your trumpet. Whenever you give alms, says Jesus. And alms, that's a particular category of giving. A-L-M-S, alms. They're gifts to be given to the poor and the needy. And we don't want to sound a trumpet and draw attention to that person who's poor and needy as a way of saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm giving to this poor guy $5 so he can buy a $10 lunch." Alms are gifts given to the poor and the needy. We don't want to embarrass people. And I found out that these are two different but related teachings from Jesus. And so the title for my pathway, a light or a trumpet. Are you a light or are you a trumpet? Are you a light or a trumpet blower? Sharon saw that title, and she picked up on it right away. Can I share your short little story, Sharon? Okay, thank you. And she said she had in this class one day 2 boys, and both boys were really smart kids, you know. And both boys were able and willing to help out their classmates with assignments and stuff. One of the boys was very humble. The other boy was a bragger. "I know everything." And the one boy, classmates reached out to for help. The other, not so much. One boy was well spoken of. The other one, not so much. I'll let you determine which one was which. Let your light shine, says Jesus. Don't cover it up, but don't make it impossible for people to notice your good works. Don't make it impossible to let them be influenced by your example of faith. Don't make it impossible for them to see God working through you. What both passages teach us is that glory is to be given to God and not us. Let your light shine so God can be glorified. By the way, Jesus' image of blowing a trumpet is a reminder that a trumpet is something we use to announce the presence of God. People would have picked up on that right away. In Exodus, God instructs Moses that a trumpet will sound to let people know that God is here. Exodus 19, verses 16 through 17. And a blast of a trumpet so loud that all the people trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God. Again, Jesus says, when you give alms, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Now, I've learned many lessons about giving over the years. And giving is not always as easy as it sounds. I saw a man hitchhiking just this past Friday, and it was raining out on the road, and I wanted to stop my car, and I wanted to say, hey, get on in. But those alarms started going off in my head. It says, never pick up a hitchhiker. Never pick up a stranger. And I remember one time that I almost did pick up a hitchhiker. It was Portage, Wisconsin. I met this young couple, and they'd been hiking, and they told me they had overdone it, and they needed a ride back to their car at the other end of the trail. And I thought something was kind of strange about this, because the other end of the trail was only 1/4 of a mile away. And the young man looked perfectly able. Yes, his wife looked 6 months pregnant, but he looked able to go get the car and come get her. And I only had one spare seat in my car, so I had to say, no, I can't do this, sorry. And I felt bad about that all day, until next day I read in the newspaper about a man who had been robbed by a young couple in Portage, Wisconsin, because he had given them a ride. And I said, that was almost me. Thank you, God. I still felt guilty, but we're supposed to respond. I was listening to another pastor tell me his tale of woe one day. In Wisconsin Dells. He received a call from a woman in need of a room for a night. And good Samaritan that he was, he went to the hotel, he filled in the paperwork, he paid for the room, gave him his credit card, and wished her well. The credit card number wished her well. The next day he contacts his bank and finds that more than $700 has been charged to his credit card. He goes to the hotel and says, what's going on here? Well, it turns out the woman ordered room service. Expensive items off the menu for dinner, midnight snack, breakfast, and lunch. Charging it all to the room. And he found out that upon leaving the room, she took with her all those nice little complimentary soaps and shampoos, along with all the towels, the sheets, the pillowcases, the pillows, the clock, and the coffee maker. I think she left the Gideon's Bible in the drawer. The man said, I was just trying to do something right. I guess I was wrong. And I said, no, you were doing the right thing. It was she that did the wrong thing. So what am I going to tell is my wife, and I didn't advise him on that. That's between them. But then he said, should I call the police? And I said, yes, you should, so that she doesn't victimize someone else. And then I realized I'd almost been the next victim, because I'd gotten that call from a woman from the same hotel, needed a room for the night. I said to the hotel clerk, yeah, I'll drive over and I'll pay for the room. And we had a long-standing relationship. Pastor would pay for the room, and the church would reimburse me. But the hotel clerk said, no, we have a new policy. We have to have your credit card. And I couldn't do it, because I had this other policy said I could never give out my credit card numbers. And that came from the church. God watching over me. And I've come to depend on that, listening to God for warning signs. So now someone is asking, well, how come God watched out for you, Pastor Norman, and not that other pastor, who was just as good a pastor as you, but you know what? He wasn't United Methodist. But I say that only half in jest, because he was a pastor of one of the smaller independent churches. He didn't have what I have, a large organization, part of a church that has millions of members all over the world. I'm part of something bigger. As I said last week, being part of something bigger gives us more power, and it makes us safer. I have had the benefit of all these other clergy going before me. I knew a pastor who said to me, you can't give out your credit card number because this is what might happen. We're part of the fellowship. And we learn a lot of hard lessons these days about people taking advantage of our generosity. And I have story after story about games that people play when asking for help. A friend of mine took me out to lunch in Beverly Hills, California. How nice is that? It was in a food court, the top of a fancy place. And we're sitting in the food court, and I was telling him these stories. And he asked, well, what do you do? Because here in Beverly Hills, we're surrounded by the poor and the needy, always asking for help. And I said, well, you have to be creative in giving. You have to find out what a person really needs, and then go and get them what they need. And that's a challenge sometimes. So right on cue, a person walks up to our table and she asks for some money so she can go buy some food. My friend paused for a moment. He said to her, well, have a seat. Tell me whatever you want, anything on the menu, I'll go get it for you and bring it here. And she didn't even acknowledge the offer. She just went on by to the next table. Jesus says, give to all who ask. And we try. But it isn't always as easy as it sounds. Alone, you can be prey for the wolves. But being part of something bigger helps. Working together is how we accomplish great things. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. What does that mean? Well, last month we took up a special offering for Milwaukee Rescue Mission. One example of what we do here. And with one hand, you gave something toward that mission, didn't you? And that money or that food, that gift went on to those people. We trust them. They're a big organization. They're long established, reputable, and we know that the gifts went to a good cause. So on one hand, you know what you gave. On the other hand, you don't know who it went to. You don't know who that person is that received the meal. You don't know that someone was given a coat or someone was given a warm room for the night, but you know the money, the gifts went to a good place because we're part of something bigger. And being part of something bigger is what gives us special power. And being part of something bigger, we profess a common faith together. And I would like to have us share together the Apostles' Creed.